Now, this is a big story, and it's something that's been happening to people on both sides of the political fence. And Cenk Uygur and his cousin Hassan Piker, nephew Hassan Piker, have probably been the most recent Americans to fall foul of this particular decision. And as a UK citizen, I'm sure there'll be others who also have kind of not totally clear view on what these decisions are being based on. Although Cenk gives his ideas and feelings and reasoning on why he thinks this particular thing happened to him, and shares this with Piers Morgan. So check it out.
Cenk Uygur means many things to many people. He's a progressive YouTuber whose self-made business was at the vanguard of a shift from legacy to digital media. He's an outspoken critic of America's meddling in foreign conflicts and of foreign meddling in America's politics. He's a failed presidential candidate, an unashamed hothead, an acquired taste. One thing he's certainly not, though, is an extremist or a dangerous purveyor of threatening hate speech, unless that is, you're the British government. Last night, Cenk Uygur planned to board a flight to London, only to be told that the UK authorities had revoked his permission to enter the country. Among other things, he'd been invited to speak at South by Southwest London, to give a speech at Oxford University, and to take part in a debate in this very studio. The UK Home Office doesn't publicly disclose why it bans anyone, but Cenk says he was told that he poses a serious risk to public order because of his commentary on Israel. Well, a very detailed report appeared in the Times newspaper quickly after Cenk himself got the news. It refers to his framing of the Gaza war as a genocide and his view that the pro-Israel lobby has a big influence on US politics, as well as other comments made on my show. You may not agree with any of Cenk's positions, but anyone with even the faintest grasp of popular discourse will know they are mainstream opinions which are freely debated almost every single day. By this standard, half of the guests on this show will be banned from Britain. And on that point, Cenk's nephew, Hassan Piker, another uncensored guest and a very popular streamer, is also banned. He's mainstream enough to appear alongside leading Democrats like Ro Khanna and AOC, but apparently he's too hot for we Brits to handle. Well, Cenk Uygur actually joked about all this a few weeks ago.
I'm coming to London in a couple of weeks, as you know, Piers, and I intend to greatly offend Israel. I don't know if I'll be arrested over there. You know, they have some absurd laws in England. My nephew, Hassan Piker, is coming with me, and he might be arrested because some pro-Israel people think that they can say anything they want about Muslims, but the minute you touch Israel, not even Judaism, they think you should be arrested. Obviously, that kind of double standard is unacceptable and is the, refuge of cowards.
Well, he hasn't been arrested, but he has been banned, and all of this amounts to a colossal embarrassment for the UK, which already has an unwanted global reputation for authoritarian crackdowns on social media users. And it's yet another example of censoring the criticism of Israel. It should be blindingly obvious that there's a huge difference between criticising the actions of a nation state and its government and the hate-filled diatribes of Kanye West or indeed Valentina Gomez. But my country is losing the ability to see that difference. It won't be long before that's something which threatens all of us. Well, joining me now is Cenk Uygur, founder and CEO of the Young Turks, and Shabbos Kestenbaum, commentator with PragerU, both of whom are due to be in this studio with me to debate in person before the British Home Office intervened. Well, before I get to Cenk, Shabbos, credit to you, because your first reaction publicly about this was to say how outraged you were by this ban and how wrong it was. Just explain why.
Sure. Well, it's good to see both of you, if not in person, at least virtually. And that's because of Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk always taught me that the best way to combat bad ideas is with better ideas. It's not with censorship. I'm half British, as I think I mentioned on the show before. My parents were born and raised here. My whole extended family still live in London. And to me, England is a country that produced the Magna Carta. This is a country of thinkers like John Locke and Edmund Burke. And I find the deterioration of free speech, the erosion of free speech in the United Kingdom in particular, to be incredibly worrisome. I would add, I'm not entirely clear what the reasons were, because I think, Cenk, if you're being intellectually honest, you will also admit you were not given specific reasons. Was it because you're anti-Israel? It's possible. I'm not disputing that. But we also have to keep in mind that there are a whole host of people that have been barred from entering the UK that did not elicit the same outrage. People like, Ezra Levant. I mean, he's pro-Israel as they come, and I'm not entirely clear why he was rejected. People like Don Keith, people like Dominic Tarczynski, who I believe was on your show.
Well, I had Don Keith on only last week after the Tommy Robinson march, and I gave him plenty of time to try and explain why he felt he'd been banned, and I didn't understand it. Now, Valentina Gomez to me is a different situation. She's somebody who is openly, brazenly, hatefully bigoted towards Muslim people because they're all Muslim. She hates them all and wants to whip up hatred about them. I didn't see Don Keith in that category at all, and I don't see you, Cenk Uygur, in that category at all either. You've been probably my most regular guest on Uncensored since we began. And sometimes I'm concerned about your blood vessels, but when it comes to what you say about Israel, I've been, listening very intently. You've always been very careful to maintain your criticism of Israel and its government in particular and its decisions, but I've never heard you espouse any anti-Semitism. Never heard you be hateful about Jewish people or anyone because of their faith or their ethnicity. So I just don't understand what rationale the UK government could possibly have for banning you. Have you been able to find out any more?
Yeah, so let's break it down. So I go to the airport and they just say that I've been rejected by the British government and I'm not allowed to enter and hence I can't board the plane. They don't give any stated reason. Then about 20 minutes later, that Times article that you mentioned, Piers, comes out and it says because I criticize Israel in the wrong ways. Now, I don't know if the British government is going to put out a list of the acceptable ways to criticize Israel and the unacceptable ways to criticize Israel. That might be helpful because apparently we're going to need it. Over 60% of Americans are critical of Israel. Will we all be banned from the UK? Should everyone be careful about traveling to the United Kingdom because they might ruin your plans at the end if a different government is unsatisfied with you? Can they put out a list of things you're not allowed to say about Israel? And what's amazing is that you're allowed to say anything you want about the United Kingdom or about America or any other country. And they said the only thing they could grasp at, because I've never said anything anti-Semitic because I don't believe that. In fact, I believe the opposite. And it is that they said that I said that America is controlled by Israel, the Congress is, because they're the top donor in this election, in this last election cycle. Well, that is empirically true. That is a fact. So are facts anti-Semitic now? Are news people not allowed to deliver facts to people? And if you say, hey, someone who is deeply anti-Semitic says the Jews are terrible and it's their fault and Hitler's good, etc., is in the same camp as a guy who says, no, this has nothing to do with Jewish people. In fact, 63% of Jewish Americans are opposed to the current Israeli government. And I make that distinction on the Young Turks almost every day.
You made it on this show regularly.
And if you put us in the same category, well, you're destroying the idea of combating actual bigotry. It's almost like pulling a Jussie Smollett on a national level and saying we don't care. And it's also deeply ironic to say that we're going to ban you for criticizing Israel by saying that our governments are controlled by Israel.
The other point I read in the Times piece actually involved directly this show because the Times said the decision to ban you was also based on some appearances on Uncensored in which he dismissed evidence relating to grooming gangs in towns such as Rotherham, where official inquiries have identified an estimated 1,400 victims. Well, let's take a look at the clip we think they're talking about.
And then they go, it's the Muslims. I mean, it's almost comical. It's comical. And then we're talking about, grooming gangs going after kids or whatever. Oh, that comes out just as everyone's talking about the Epstein files and how a bunch of pro-Israeli figures raped American girls. Oh, it's the Muslims. It's the Muslims. So next time you hear it's the Muslims, I guarantee you that it's Israeli propaganda trying to divert you from something that's in the news now.
Can you address it?
Can you shut up and let me address it?
Can you address it without mentioning Israel? Or can you address grooming gangs?
No, because that's the whole reason we're having this conversation. Because your Israeli buddies wanted a distraction from the Epstein files. That's why they threw this garbage into the media. So now let me address it in an adult way.
Piers just explained to you that that's been going on for 30 years.
Will you shut up and let me address it?
It's been going on for 30 years.
You're asking me a question and I'll answer it. You're asking me a question and I'll answer it. This is super easy. Why don't you arrest everyone who's committed a crime? So if Pakistani grooming gangs exist, and I'm sure they do, then arrest them. Where's the question?
Yeah, but they didn't.
If there's a
They
gang
didn't
of white
arrest them,
people,
did they? Because of people like
shut
you.
up and let
They
me
didn't arrest
finish.
them.
If there's people, shut up and let me finish. So if there's a white gang of people who are raping people, arrest them. If there's a bunch of super powerful people who are raping American girls, arrest them.
Now, again, people can disagree with you, agree with you, whatever, right? The reality of the grooming gang scandal was that it went on over several decades. It was covered up. It involved predominantly Pakistani British Muslim men abusing young white English girls. That was what happened, and many of them eventually got brought to justice and put in prison, but not before a gigantic cover-up went on, and that is indisputable and was a disgusting scandal which shamed my country. However, nothing that you've said about that. I mean, look, I would contest and I would argue with you that I've not seen clear evidence of any concerted Israeli campaign to hide the Epstein scandal thing around re-inflaming the Muslim grooming gang scandal, because to me they're two totally different things, and the grooming scandal continues to make news because of developments involving it. So I would say that you're wrong about that, Cenk, but it doesn't really matter whether you're wrong about it or not. You are perfectly entitled to express that opinion and to express that suspicion, and people on the panel can argue with you, disagree with you, or agree with you. The idea that again, as the Times reports, was one of the reasons apparently the British government used to ban you from coming to my country, I just find completely ridiculous and shameful. People say to me, what is going on with your country? And they try and say, you're being overrun by Muslims. And I say, you know what? It's complete crap. We're not being overrun by Muslims. But when they say, but there's been a concerted attack on your free speech, I'm finding it increasingly difficult to argue about that. We have comedians who've been arrested at the airport, Heathrow, coming in for jokes they made on X months before. We now have this. We have people doing Facebook posts being put in prison, grandmothers and so on. And it's got completely out of control. And we've forgotten what free speech actually means. It actually means tolerating opinions that we don't like, not opinions you do like. What now happens? Do you have any right of appeal, Cenk?
So let's talk about the grooming gangs for a second, Piers, because it goes a little deeper than what you said. They told the Times that I denied the existence of grooming gangs. But
you didn't.
Even in the clip you just played,
Yeah, you didn't deny it.
I said, I'm sure that they exist. So that's the exact opposite of what's true. So then that inexorably leads to the question of, why is the British government lying about me? That is very weird, right? Why lie about my stance on grooming gangs? And can I not say that I think it's meant as a distraction and a way to blame Muslims overall?
The whole point is, of course you can. Yeah, I mean, of course you're allowed to have that view. Like I say, I don't agree with it, but I don't agree with a lot of things you say. And I agree passionately with other things you say. And I like having you on the show because you always take part in debate. You're always prepared to debate with people like Shabos. I mean, I was really pleased, Shabos, to bring you back in, that you immediately went out there publicly and defended Cenk, the guy you were going to be arguing with passionately about these kind of issues, not realising that he would be at the centre of it. I mean, let me ask you, Shabos, in terms of this, every country has a right to let anybody in or not let them in, right? America bans a lot of people from going into the country. I happen to know two famous people in England who've stopped going to America because they had warnings, like cautions from the police for possessing tiny amounts of marijuana. And that meant every time they tried to go to America, they'd be hauled into a side room when they landed and grilled for 15 hours. And they got fed up with it and they eventually left. And yet Tommy Robinson, who has a list of prison convictions as long as your arm, appears to come and go as he pleases. So there are clearly a weird set of double standards applied about all sorts of stuff. But fundamentally, a country has a right to decide who they let in and who they don't. But you raised a good point, which is after the Tommy Robinson march, it was clear a number of American citizens had been banned from coming in for that because their views were deemed to be likely to, be against the interests of my country. And some of them I kind of agreed with, like Valentina Gomez. I think she's an appalling human being who just wants to whip up racial hatred. But others I didn't get. And so I think, again, it's like, well, who's deciding this? Who is the arbiter? It seems to be just on the whim of the Home Secretary or the Home Office or the Homeland Security people, whatever, to just arbitrarily work out who they think isn't suitable. What do you think about that?
Yeah. I agree with how you diagnose the problem, and that's why I was comfortable using the word authoritarian, because when you have the government arbitrarily deciding which views we're going to subjectively decide or allow into this country, that's really dangerous. And there are kind of like two ways of entering this. One is the legal lens. So to your point, you are right. Legally, countries can decide who's allowed into the country and who isn't. The United States does it. So Marco Rubio has made it very clear in the beginning of the second Trump administration that we are going to screen people based on their social media presences. If they're,
So obviously, as you can hear, Cenk isn't too happy about that. And there's a few others in the same line queuing up who've had similar experience. And it definitely, as I said earlier, it definitely affects people on both sides of the fence in terms of who the government have chosen to not allow entry into the country based on something they've said or they believe they may say during their stay here. So he's had quite a bit to say for good reason. So he goes into it a little bit more on his TYT show. And if you don't know who Cenk Uygur is, he's a very huge, I would say, character on YouTube and in the political news media arena, particularly in the States. He's the founder of a network that is, could say, self-sustaining. They say they don't, they're not supported by any major donors. It's the viewers themselves who fund and maintain their independent YouTube show and network. And they've been around for a long time, probably amongst the first in their particular field of YouTube journalism. So this is, you can check this out on TYT if you want to see the full thing. And also if you want to see the rest of the Piers Morgan Uncensored interview with Cenk. Before we go into that, just like to take a moment for our video sponsors, smalldebts.co.uk. They can help you with your business administration. And if you find yourself getting into any difficulties online, even if you're an individual who've been scammed and you want somebody to help repatriate those funds back into your bank account, they will represent you in a professional way and have that problem solved in no time. Smalldebts.co.uk.
Need an accounts team without the hiring costs. Small Debts provides full service invoicing and credit control, managing everything from invoice submission to reminders and follow-ups. We can send emails from your domain or ours. Let Small Debts keep the cash flow rolling whilst you focus on growing the business.
Subscribe to the channel. Please hit the bell icon. We need all of the help we can get building up our subscriptions and building this community. So let's continue with Cenk, who has a few more things to get off his chest.
Giant fraudulent game. They're all frauds. So like, as long as anybody's watching television or reading like the normal mainstream media publications, they're voluntarily signing up to get brainwashed. So if no one listened to those and people just watched online media or independent media, there's no way in the world we would support Israel. There's no way we would give them a single more dollar. There's no way that we would do any of the things that our government does. And it's not just about Israel. There's no way in the world we would say that we can't negotiate drug prices or give $35 billion a year to oil companies for free, for nothing. Do this $1 to now $1.5 trillion defense budget, so Lockheed Martin could and Boeing and Raytheon could rob us blind. They just look. It's organized, obvious bribery, and every cable news anchor says, "I'm so stupid, I can't tell." Oh, did Lockheed Martin give money to this guy and then that guy voted for them, whether they were a Republican or a Democrat? Duh, I'm so stupid, I can't follow the money. I can't do the simplest job as a reporter. And everybody who works at the New York Times and Washington Post is like, duh, I'm so stupid, I can't follow the money. Oh, did the Israeli lobby give all this money and spent 16 million against Massey, 14 against Cori Bush, 18 million against Jamal Bowman? And look at that, it was all defeating Israel's critics. And then once they did that, the Republicans and other Republicans and Democrats were so scared of that lobby that they voted to give Israel money every single time. But no reporter figured that out. Not a single mainstream media reporter figured that out. Come on. And you're all cosplaying as journalists? No, they're gonna get a literal revolution in this country. I'm trying to do a political one, including on this show, so that it doesn't spill over to a literal one. But they just keep poking us and going, you better listen to Israel. You better do everything they say, otherwise we'll ruin you, right? Don't tell me they don't do that. They literally do that. They doxed my wife. They banned me from going to the United Kingdom. And after they do that, they go, you better not complain. And this is what white people used to do to black people for 100 years during Reconstruction, let alone slavery. So they would lynch them and they would, insult them in every way, injure them in every way, take their money, limit their freedom. And then when black people justifiably complain, they double hang them. And then when they said, what are you doing? They'd be like, no, you're being offensive, okay? And that's what they're doing now. So the Israel supporters are saying, we get to destroy you. But if you complain, we're gonna say that you're victimizing us, and we're gonna get every son of a bitch liar in mainstream media to write it like that. We're gonna get them all to lie and pretend there is no network of Israel supporters in this country that brutalize anyone that criticizes Israel. We're gonna lie on their behalf. And by the way, Jake Tapper, part of the reason I constantly say Jake Tapper is Jake Tapper has those guys on and retweets them. And it's like, oh yes, these terrorists are wonderful people and they have located anti-Semites. Let's give them the scarlet letter and destroy their lives. I'm an objective reporter on CNN, Jake Tapper says. Get the F out of here, man. So, okay, so yeah, the money's burned, can't go to the United Kingdom. The media is the only ones that are perverting the reality, but it doesn't matter. They could try to pervert it in every way that they can. I was all over online media today. I'm gonna be on Dave Smith's show tomorrow and many others. I was on Piers Morgan today, on The Guardian, on Middle East Eye, and so many others, Navarra, etc. And so we're getting the message out. And guys, look here, I'll say it to you first, and then I'm gonna take this both to our show and to other shows and see if we can get it to be something that's functional and real. We have to set up a network, and I don't mean like an own network. I mean an informal network of some of the top online shows like us and Rogan and Tucker and Megyn Kelly and Tim Dillon and Theo Vaughn and Charlemagne and Andrew Schultz and Breaking Points and others, okay? Left, right, middle. And we have to find a way to get information out to the American people without the filter, the disgusting, corrupted filter of traditional media. Traditional media that hates the average American, loves the elites, pretends to be so painfully stupid that they can't tell that all of our politicians are being bribed. Donald Trump got $317 million from the Adelsons. And our press is like, oh, does he work for Israel? He says it. He says, I moved our embassy because of them. He says Miriam Adelson cares more about Israel. And our press is like, shh, shh, shh. They have no control. They have no influence. They have no influence. You're all anti-Semites. All Americans are anti-Semites. They scream into the television set every single day, pretending to be real reporters. All of television is theater. It's a play they put on you. So there's two ways you could look at it. Two things can be true at the same time, but as we talked about in Operation Joy and in other places, in reality, of course, 4, 5, 6 different things can be true at the same time, right? There's a lot of ways to look at the same situation from different perspectives. And the job of the media is, the mainstream media, is to get you to see it not from your perspective or a rational or objective perspective, but to get you to see it from super rich and powerful people's perspective. So they take the news and sometimes they literally change the facts, but most of the time they don't change the actual facts, but they twist it around so you look at it from only their perspective. Now, we have to do tax cuts for the rich, otherwise you lose all your jobs. And you can't raise the minimum wage, you'll lose all your jobs. You can't get universal health care. How are you gonna afford that? You can't pay for it. Oh, and infinite war for Israel? No, I'm never going to ask whether we can pay for it. Asking whether you can pay for it is anti-Semitic. Oh, I see. So you're not doing the news. You're trying to get us to see the world in a way that is beneficial to the wealthy and the powerful. And I'm not talking about Israel in that case. I'm talking about all of the lobbies, all of the donor class. The job of the mainstream media is to lie to you, to deceive you every single day so you don't realize the robbery that all of those people, by bribing our politicians legally, are robbing us blind. They've taken trillions of dollars out of our pockets and put it into the pockets of the very rich. And the number one culprit, the people who have helped them the most, their accomplices, are the national media. Without that getaway driver, they can't possibly get away with all their crimes. So there's no way you're gonna find anybody in America or the world who despises American national media more than I do. I think they are the worst of the worst, and they've allowed every crime to happen. They've cheerled every crime in this country, political crime, I mean, and they've cheerled all of the donor class. They've tried to manipulate all their audiences. They lie to them 24/7. So I couldn't be clearer. All right, let's go to the next caller. Sorry, I got worked up about that.
Cenk was not a very happy man, for fairly good reasons though. So thank you for spending time here with myself and you out there at Corner Speak, and I'll catch you on the next time round. Be good, be safe, be creative. I'm out. Oh, by the way, don't forget to hit the bell icon if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, and leave a comment. Catch you on the next one.